Hey there, adventurers. Welcome to another episode of the Stacking Adventures podcast. She's Crystal.
And I'm Joe. He's Joe.
And on today's show, we are super excited because, Crystal, you just went on a haunted pub crawl and talked all about that. But have you ever thought about like pub crawling Europe or pub crawling Asia or...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've done it by mistake while I was there. I never thought to do it with an actual guide. That would be totally fun.
But still doing it on your own. Imagine this crazy world where you just grabbed a book, grabbed like a sister or brother or a close friend and said, hey, I got an idea. Let's just go wander.
Oh, yeah. People would follow me, definitely. Well, I'm normally the follower. I would prefer someone to have it all planned out for me. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I'm laid back.
You got to have that Crystal easy button. Do you have that easy button? What is that? Staples or Office Depot, the press the easy button?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let someone else do it. That's the button.
That's right. Well, on today's show, adventure and mystery writer Michael Balter joins us again. Not only is he a mind behind award-winning books Chasing Money and the Vatican Deal, he's also today sharing his story of traveling around Europe in the 80s. He's going to take us, Crystal, on the adventure of a lifetime.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us, he said 1987. So I was born. I was almost double digits. So that's a good thing because that could be the other fear. Before we start, let's be real. Most travel gear out there is just plain awful. That's why we share our gear of the day. So these are pieces that we've actually used ourselves, or they come recommended from our fellow adventurers and guests and you. And these are not some random things we saw or you saw in a sketchy Facebook ad. So if you want tried and true gear that saves you money, makes your trip smoother, helps you adventure betterer, I like that word, go to our page at stackingadventures.com/gear of the day or GOTD. You'll be supporting the show and you'll be setting yourself up with some gear that's Crystal Joe-alicious. Put that on a t-shirt. Yeah.
My favorite word. All right. You ready to do this?
Let's get this show on the road.
Ready for adventure? From vacation to staycation and from the mountains to the beach. This is the Stacking Adventures podcast.
Welcome back to the Stacking Adventures podcast. Every adventure has a story, and this is the show where we love to hear yours. She is Crystal Hammond.
And I'm Joe Saul-Sehy. He's Joe Saul-Sehy.
And we are going to get adventuring. So this gentleman wrote a book. I first met him when he wrote a book that was about money and also about intrigue and a bunch of scary stuff happening all at one time. But then you met him last year with a book that came out called The Vatican Deal, because talking money and talking travel. And that means award-winning mystery writer Michael Balter's here. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you, Joe? How are you, Chris?
Great. Welcome back.
Well, we hope you're staying warm in northern Michigan this time of year.
It is very cold. And yes, I'm staying warm.
That is good. Now, it wasn't cold when you took this magical mystery tour way back in 1987. Take us back to then, Michael. How does somebody in their 30s, right? 30s is prime working years. You're not usually, for most of us, you're not at the top of the work ladder, so you can't just tell the boss to shove it and I'm headed to Europe. Like, how does a guy in his 30s break away and go, you know what? It's time to do a European pub crawl.
Yes, very good question. I right after I graduated college, I was very fortunate in that I went to work for what was then a very small company. It was called Intel Corporation. And
never heard of it.
Yeah, I never heard of it. And actually, I was going to go to work for another small company, but I decided not to because they only had, I think they had like 70 employees or something, and they were working out of a small strip mall in Cupertino, and they had a funny name. And it was something called Apple.
Huh.
And, what's that thing? It's a fruit company.
I know. And I was interviewing with them. They wanted to hire me. And I just thought to myself, these guys are never going to make it. I mean, funky name. So then So an hour later was one of those career days on campus. And so an hour later, I interviewed at another small company called Intel. And I said, well, maybe they'll make it. So I decided to go to work for them. So anyways, long story shorter, they had a policy, which was that if you stayed with the company for 7 years, you would get a sabbatical, 3-month paid vacation.
Whoa.
Okay. This is back in the old days. This is how the tech companies who were then just kind of growing. And I mean, the whole tech industry had just kind of started at that point, retained their employees, kind of golden handcuffs, stay with us long enough and you'll get a 3-month paid sabbatical. Anyways, so I got my sabbatical, and so there I was like in my early 30s and wasn't married at the time and had no children, didn't even have a dog or a cat, so was completely free to do whatever I wanted.
What about your plants? You didn't have plants that would have missed you?
Plants. I'm a guy. Guys don't have, Crystal, guys don't have plants. Okay? Anyways, and my problem was that I decided I wanted to go to Europe. One of the reasons I wanted to go to Europe was because I wanted to find my biological father, who I was born in Berlin, and we'd immigrated when I was like about, 10 years old. And so I'd completely lost touch with all of my relatives in Germany. We had changed our name several times, et cetera. Anyways, it's just a totally different story. And so that's what I wanted to do. But I needed a travel companion because I figured 3 months in Europe by myself was going to be a little bit lonely.
Yeah.
And I was lucky because my younger brother had decided he had put off college for a few years. And so he was in his late 20s, but he was in college at the time. He was getting his degree in physics. And I said, hey, how would you like to get a completely all expenses paid trip to Europe for 3 months? Right? I'll buy everything. And he said, when do we leave? So there I had my running mate, right? So
wait a minute. So what you're saying, Michael, hold on a second. You're saying that your brother finally goes to college and he's just starting to make his mark and you go mess it up.
Yeah. Exactly. But my brother is wickedly smart, and I knew that spending 3 months with him would just rub off on me, and it would be a good thing. Mm-hmm. So we took off. We ended up first going through a lot of Europe. We started out, I think we started out in Vienna, and then we went through Germany.
Can we pause on a couple of these places just as you're bringing them up? You started in Vienna. Do you remember your first impression of Vienna?
Vienna is gorgeous. One of the reasons we went to Vienna was because my then girlfriend, who is now my wife, wanted to celebrate my 35th birthday, and her birthday present to me was going to take me to the Viennese opera house to see an opera. And then there was this really expensive restaurant, like a 5-star restaurant, and I can't remember the name, I'm sorry. And that was going to be my birthday present. Now, she couldn't, because as we said earlier, it's very tough to find somebody who can just take off of work for 3 months. So sure. She had a week vacation, and so she started the trip with me and my brother. Actually, she and I went, and then my brother joined me after the first week because as I said, she went with me to Vienna. We did our thing in Vienna, and I think we went also to Budapest.
Okay.
Which was really kind of cool. And at that time, it was still, this is 87, so it was before the curtain came down.
Sure.
And and then she headed back home because she needed to go back. And I picked up my brother, and I think it was in Frankfurt. I picked up my brother, and then we just took off for the next 3 months.
Have you been to Budapest before the wall and after the wall? Did you go back after?
No, I did not go back after. What I remember about Budapest was that it was very nice because it was historic, but it was also kind of bleak in that I didn't see a lot of tourists, and the places that we stayed weren't very luxurious or anything. It was
Boy, you can really see, because I was there just a few years ago, and you can see the Soviet influenced buildings, which to your point, Michael, are just horrible. But the ones that are from before that, also to your point, just absolutely gorgeous. The city is crumbling, but it's now full of tourists. And the crumblingness of the city makes it kind of a romantic city to be in.
Yeah.
Some of these bars now, they've made bars out of these crumbling buildings. So Cheryl and I were on the second floor of this bar, and we were looking through the floor. Think about what I just said.
Wow.
Through the floor at people on the first floor, because the building is this crumbly bar. But it made it really neat. Really a neat place to be, and probably not a place that if you don't have good insurance, you shouldn't be drinking in. But
I wonder if they would pass the codes here in the U.S. I'm imagining this, this inspector to come by and go, hey, listen, did you know that you have a giant hole in your store here?
And I'm thinking about liability insurance, Crystal.
Really, exactly. Yeah.
I thought you meant that there was a glass floor, like there was a place in Greece that had this really cool glass where you could see the floor. No, it was a hole.
Yeah, think of like a bombed out building where a bomb hit 1/4 of it, and there's just an area where you don't go because the floor ends because it is fallen in. Yeah.
I was again, diversion here. I was actually born in Berlin, and for the first 10 years of my life, I lived in the bottom floor, the basement actually, of a bombed out building. And that's what a lot of people did in Berlin in those days, because it took many years to reconstruct. And my building still had, the bullet holes everywhere, and the entire, from the second floor up, had been bombed and burned out, but they had managed to make the lower floor livable. And I lived there for, no hot water, just coal heated. And
Wow.
So the cool thing about that is, as my kids grow up, and you've heard that the classic story about, like, oh God, Dad, yeah, I know you truck through snow 5 miles every day to go to
uphill
school,
both ways.
blah blah blah. Yeah, the good news with me is I could tell my stories and say, yeah, it's really true. I have photos.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
I could prove this one.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
Anyways, so back to the trip to Europe. So
you pick your brother up in Frankfurt.
What's that?
You pick your brother up in Frankfurt.
Yeah, we picked my brother up in Frankfurt, and we head out for Berlin. And as I said, I actually found my biological father, which was really cool. I found out I had an entire family in Berlin.
This is another side story, Michael, but was it hard to find him?
Yeah. It wasn't, because it turned out he'd become a very successful businessman. And what happened was that when my mother and he split up, I was like less than a year old. And so I never knew him, and my mother remarried. And so that my dad, but he was always my stepdad, but I always thought of him as my dad. So, and he's the one who immigrated to first to Canada and then to the US, which is how I got here. And I'd lost touch with my father, obviously. And my mother didn't know where he was anymore because we'd stopped communicating. And so, but I had his name, and my mother would stay in contact with her cousins and sister and stuff, and she would say, yes, I've seen him, or I've heard that he's still around, etc. So I knew he was somewhere. I just didn't know I didn't have any details. So but his name is Peter Meyer. And so in Berlin, those big round things that are on street corners all the time, and that you have, like, their advertising. What do they call those things?
Oh yeah, with all the ads all over it.
Yeah, right, everywhere, right? At least back then. I don't know about now, but back then they still had those things, and those kind of kiosky things, or whatever they call them. There would always be an advertisement for Meyer Insurance, and so I called it. And it turns out it was my father's company. And so, so
how did he react to you being there? I have to ask while we're this far down this road.
Yeah, he was incredibly surprised and shocked. And he went, oh my God, Michael, that's my German name.
Yeah.
And we agreed to meet the very next day in the Europaplatz, which is right downtown Berlin, and in a restaurant. And I got there about a half an hour earlier because I wanted to stand in the door and look out the parking lot and see if I could see him, so I can kind of prepare. And so I'm standing in the doorway, I'm half an hour early, and I'm just kind of looking through the parking lot, and I'm waiting, and I get a tap on the shoulder from behind, and I turn around, and I'm staring into a mirror, only about 10 years
my
old.
goodness.
I never looked like anyone else in my family. I didn't look like my brother who was with me.
Yeah.
I didn't look like my sister. I didn't look so much like my mom. And so I looked different than everyone else in my family. And I turned around and there's a man standing in front of me. And I swear to God, he's me, only 20 years older.
Undeniable.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really weird. It was really weird. So we got to be really good friends, and we reconnected, and he became Opa to my children, and yeah,
Oh.
it was very, very nice. Yeah, and I found out I had a half brother and a half sister who also are wonderful people. And yeah, anyways,
That's fabulous.
Cool.
So you and your brother then celebrate this momentous occasion by going, let's go see how many different places we can drink beer.
yes. Well, all right. So a couple of really quick ones. So we kind of went through through Switzerland and then south of France, which is really cool, by the way. South of France, we stayed in Cannes. It was really cool. And again, part of this is because I had enough money to afford this. We didn't do the train thing with the backpack, and we had a car. We were able to go wherever. My brother drove because, especially once we got to England, because of the left side.
Oh.
And so I didn't have to worry about that. And so let's get to England. So we get to England. We last place was Paris, and then we flew from Paris to London. Okay. And we get into London, and we had no plans because we just kind of did our own thing. But one of the things that we did get tired of when we were in Paris, we both actually just kind of, one day we just kind of stayed the entire day in the hotel room and didn't do anything. And we both talked about it because we'd been now in Europe for almost 2.5 months. And we were just going from one tourist trap to another. And in fact, interestingly enough, we actually ran into other Americans along the way that we'd seen in the previous country. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh yeah, I remember
That
you.
is neat.
Yeah, you were in Interlaken. Yeah, that's right. We met at the bar, remember? Yeah, and here you are in Paris. Wow, this is so. It was fine, but it was just we were just getting very kind of tired of it.
You felt kind of rote.
Yeah. So, anyways, we land in London, and one of the things that I wanted to do when I was in London was I wanted to buy a couple of really old books because I thought it would be cool to have these books like in a library, in my library at home and stuff. And these really, so the reason I say that is because I start searching through some bookstores in London, and I'm in a bookstore, and I see this book, and it's this book right here. And it was published at that time about, I don't know, it was maybe 6 months already out, right? And it's called English Country Pubs by Derry Brabs, okay? I checked Amazon, by the way, before I came on the show here today, and it's still there. You can still buy this.
And let me describe it for our
$8.50.
$8.50.
$8.50. So anybody wants to do this can do this because they can get the book on Amazon.
And let me, Michael, describe this book for our audio listeners. So this isn't a little book like a
it's a coffee table,
like a folder's guide. This is a big coffee table book. I mean, this is a big huge picture on the front. I bet there's a bunch of pictures inside.
Right.
And so you pick this, you pick this up at a bookstore.
Yeah. So for example,
a local bookstore.
This is classic, right? So what you'll see is the picture of a pub, and then you'll see a little description. You see that little description there?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So, and then that's on every page. So there's one more just for, and so that's another one.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And for stackers that are audio only, you're not missing anything. Think of an iconic English pub and
on a hill.
He just showed us two of them.
Yeah, and lots of green too.
Right.
Lots of ivy coming up the side.
And they broke the pubs up into these categories: historical, coaching, traditional, waterside, literary associations, haunted, and that's it. So these are like the categories that you'll see in the way they kind of split up the book. So anyways, I see this book and I said, why not? I'm in England. I'll just grab grab the book along because I also found these really beautiful old books that I ended up getting. So we didn't hang around London too much because it was very crowded, and we did the kind of touristy thing again, Piccadilly and a couple of other places. But for the most part, we got out of London pretty early. And my brother really wanted to see Oxford. He was really interested in seeing Oxford. He's a college student at the time. I think he secretly harbored the ambitions to maybe even go to Oxford.
Oh, yeah.
And as I said, my brother is wickedly smart. So he was really into that. And he said, I want to go to Oxford. I said, okay, let's head to Oxford. So he's driving because there was no way I was going to drive. We had a Saab. I remember it was a Saab convertible. And again, these are all the benefits of being able to do this while Intel was paying me a salary.
Sure.
So I could afford to do all this stuff, right? So anyway, and Oxford's not that far a drive. It's only like an hour outside of London. So it wasn't this long haul. And when we get there, by sheer luck, this was not planned, okay? By sheer luck, we stop at an inn because we're hungry and we want to just get a bite to eat. And it's called the Trout, all right? And the Trout is here. I'll show you this picture of it in the book.
In the book, wow.
Okay, so you see that? Can you see that?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Beautiful.
So the Trout, we didn't know this at the time. As I said, we just found it and we would just kind of stop there. Its claim to fame was that it was where its legend has it that Lewis Carroll told the story of Alice in Wonderland for the first time to a small child that he was kind of semi-babysitting while he was on a boat on the Thames, which is the river that goes by the Trout. And he stopped there to have tea and crumpets or whatever. And so so we had kind of read this as we were it was kind of on the menu kind of thing. And I said, geez, I wonder if this place is in the book. And so I go back to the car and I yank the book out of the suitcase and I come in and sure enough, it's there. And I said, the waitress comes by and I said, would you be willing to sign this? And she said, well, I'm just the waitress here. But she said, and she got the owner. So the owner comes out and looks at the book. And I swear, none of this, all of this is absolutely the way it happened. This is one of the few things I really remember because I was still sober at that point. Yeah, right. Everything after this, by the way, is nothing but a fog, right? So she brings out the owner. The owner looks at the book and he's leafing through the book and he goes, "Oh my God, I didn't know I was in the book. I didn't know I was in the book." Apparently, the author just took the photographs, and I guess in England you don't have to get permission to put.
Oh, wow.
And in the U.S. you would have to get permission. You'd have to get somebody to agree. Anyways, apparently, and so he goes, "I didn't even know I was in this," and he just loved it. He signed it. And then he gave us a tour and he like walked us all over the pub and he told us the whole story about Lewis Carroll and Alice in Wonderland and the whole thing, et cetera. And so afterwards, we're kind of sitting there. My brother and I are sitting there. And I said, wow. I said, just because we showed him the book, we got like this incredible treatment. It was really, really cool.
I can hear the gamification wheels.
Yeah. And so I said, you know what we should do? I said, want to cancel everything that we plan to do in England. Just cancel it. And we just see how many of these pubs we can actually get signatures from. So my brother says, well, that's great for you, but I don't have a book. And, to get your book signed is like a little bit, a lot of work. How is this going to be great for me, right? And I said, okay, let's find you a book. So we went back into Oxford.
Oh, my goodness.
We went to like just about every bookstore in the entire city of Oxford. And we found one, like near the end, of course. It's always near the end. It's never near the beginning. It's not the first bookstore you go to, right?
Or your keys are always the last place you look. Get it? Because you found
Right. We just didn't want to drive all the way back to London because we knew there was another bookstore there, obviously. But anyways, we found another book. And so now my brother is into it, right? He's going, oh, yeah, this is a contest. Let's see how many we can do. So there's 138 pubs in this
Oh.
book. Okay. And just to confirm, I sat up last night and I counted them. I knew that, but I counted to confirm. And we got signatures in 55 of them in a
Wow.
matter of 2 weeks. If you do the math on that, we started on June 19th. That's the date that is signed by the Trout in Godstow, Oxfordshire. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was
1987.
on June 19th, 1987. And the last signature in here was July 2nd of 87, which means that in 2 weeks we hit 55 pubs. And if you do the math on that, that's 4 a day.
Nice.
Okay. So, but here was the trick. Now you have to imagine this. This is back in 87. Guess what wasn't around in 87?
GPS.
You didn't have GPS. You didn't have Google to just go, how do I find this pub? So we're
You just
sitting
got
there going,
Rand McNally.
how do we do this? So again, another bookstore, we got this giant multi-page map of England.
Yeah.
Like it split England up into like 50 pages. Okay. The other thing, and I'll try to show this to you so that you'll see what the challenge was. The challenge was that if you notice in the description, I don't know if I can hold this up. They only give you the county.
Oh no, they don't tell you
No
what
address.
road it's on, no
They don't
address.
give you an address.
Nice.
So my
Wow.
brother and I would have to sit at night after drinking all day.
Right.
And because one of the things we also had to do is we were heading for Scotland and then to Ireland. We were going to basically end the 3-month thing and 3 months sabbatical in Ireland. Okay. So the other thing is we had to head north. You can't just go willy-nilly. You have to have at least some kind of direction, right? So we started looking at the different pubs and in the counties. And then we had this giant map and it would generally tell us the village. So we would be able to find the village. And then we would try to find is as many villages together in a small locale so that we could hit as many pubs as, in a day as we could, right? There was an enormous amount of planning that took place in the evening, but I don't want you to think it was a burden. It was incredible fun.
Yeah.
For at least for us, and maybe we're boring people, but I mean, we would sit there
No.
in pubs or in the hotel room and go, okay, now we got tomorrow we're heading, here, and we've got to find out how many of these pubs are in this area here. And anyway, it was absolutely wonderful. So
in the second half of today's show, by the way, I want to hear about the pubs, and I know, Crystal, you do too. So now as Sherlock Holmes said, the game is afoot, right? And now Michael and his brother are about to play the game. By the way, true story here as well. He said that the pub crawl ended on July 2nd. He only gained 85 pounds, eating 4 times a day. And his AA adventure started on July 3rd. Actually, none of that is true at all. But I think maybe it could be. All right, we're gonna take a quick break from Michael's story because at the halfway point, we got a new game, Crystal.
Woohoo!
We got a game we play with our adventures, and this is for those people that like Where's Waldo, or Crystal, one of your favorite games back in the day was Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Yes. And that's a second to Clue. That's another really good one. But Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? I was like, I want to be her someday.
Well, and now you are. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So here's the game adventures. What you do is you call our hotline, stackingadventures.com/mystory, where you also tell your stories about your pub crawls or your adventures through Europe or wherever it might be. Heck, or around the state where you live, whatever it might be, stackingadventures.com/mystory. But tell us that you want to play the game. And then you're going to do 2 things. And we got a demonstration from an adventurer, Crystal, who did this. He nailed it. First thing is you're going to ask Crystal a yes/no question. Then you're going to hopefully pick the place where Crystal is as we narrow it down. Where is Crystal around the world? And this is a place that she's either traveled to or she wants to travel to where she is. So we're going to kick this off right now with adventurer Eric, who, Crystal, he's going to ask a question. By the way, what are we playing for? I cruised when I went to Budapest, Michael. I took Emerald Cruise Lines, and it was a Christmas markets cruise. And by the way, the Christmas markets in Budapest and in Vienna were fantastic going down the Danube. But I got this wonderful backpack from Emerald. So we're going to give away a travel backpack to whoever wins this. But you know what? Winning it is one thing, just playing is fun. So let's play. Eric, kick this off. What's your yes/no question for Crystal?
Hi, I'd like to play the Where is Crystal game. I am wondering if Crystal is in the mountains.
All right. There is his yes/no question. Crystal, is your place in the mountains?
No, absolutely not.
So we've eliminated all the mountainous terrain around the world. Nice guess. It's not in the mountains. We're going to hear after the break where Eric thinks you are, and I bet Crystal, sadly, it's a place in the mountains that he's going to guess. But we'll see in just a minute. We'll be right back. Crystal, you are not hanging out in the mountains.
Nope.
No. Well, let's see if Eric picked a place. This is the first guess of the entire competition.
Woo-hoo!
Did he pick a place that wasn't in the mountains?
I'm going to say yes, obviously. I am going to guess that Crystal is in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, in the Teton Mountains.
Beautiful. Michael, have you been to the Tetons?
I have. Yes, they're very beautiful.
Just absolutely gorgeous. And I love Jackson. Fantastic. Speaking about pub crawls, we went to it was a gutted old factory. It was Snake River Brewing. I don't even know if Snake River Brewing is still there. One thing, by the way, the Trout, I looked up the Trout Inn while you were telling us about this beautiful place, Michael. It exists today. It's open now. And just outside, as you mentioned, just outside Oxford, gets great reviews on TripAdvisor. So if you're headed to Oxford, you want a little piece of history and to follow in the tracks of crime writer Michael Balter, you'll get to, and go pay $8.50 and get your own book signed.
Yeah,
what I would say. But Crystal, are you in Jackson Hole, Wyoming?
No.
You are not. All right.
I've never been in Wyoming.
You got to go, Crystal.
Okay.
You got to go because
it's like 99th on the list now.
It is beautiful. And if you go to Grand Teton National Park, Cheryl and they had a great junior ranger program. So our twins went and did that program. Fun. And Cheryl and I went on a little hike. And we're hiking around the beautiful lake there in front of the Tetons, Jenny Lake in the park. We go around a corner and here is a mama bear right in the middle of the path. And by the way, it was right in a crook in the trail and the underbrush was pretty big here. And I did not see the bear until she was maybe 20 yards from us, which is way too close. And she just is on the trail and she's staring at us. So we stand there and put our hands up and we kind of talk to it like the Rangers had told us to, just talk kind of in a calm voice. And we're talking to the bear and she just stares at us. And then all of a sudden we see these two little cubs and they come walk across the trail. And then Mama Bear just kind of nodded to us and she followed her cubs into the brush. She was being a crossing guard for her kids.
I thought you had your hands up like they were robbing you of your snacks or something.
Well, yeah. Luckily she didn't do that. But don't mess with Mama, right? All right, that's how you play the game, and it's stackingadventures.com/mystory. And now we know you don't have to guess anything about the mountains
or Montana,
because you gave it away. Well,
I gave that away.
You still could go to Montana. I don't know how many flat places there are in Montana. But all right, let's get back to Michael, to your story, because we've got a lot of adventuring to do. You planned it out now. I can imagine like a crime writer, you've got like these pins in the map all over the place and it's on the wall. No,
probably
not the case at all.
We're two young drunken sailors, basically. No, so there was a couple of things that happened as a result of this. We hadn't, as I said, this was not pre-planned, although I would encourage anyone who's listening that if you want to see England and not just be another tourist, this is a great way to do it, because the one thing it did is it took us off the tourist track.
Yes.
And we, like every single day, we were obsessed with trying to find another pub in the book and where it was located. And that's where we went. We didn't go to the next village because it was a tourist village. So some of the interesting things that happened that I can remember was, first of all, England back then, I don't know if this is still true today. Back then, the pubs would only open from, I think it was like 9 till 2. And then they closed from 2 till 4. And then again, they would be open from 4, and they generally had to close. I think it was, I want to say near midnight, but I'm not 100% sure anymore. Anyways, so my point is, we would take the kind of siesta time, and we would use that time to travel to, the next village or what have you. So one of the other things that's interesting was that some of these pubs were in villages that were incredibly small and out of the way. So absolutely true. There was one pub in particular. In fact, I confirmed this with my brother last night. I said, do you remember the pub where we were the first American tourists to ever go into the pub?
Ever.
Wow.
And he said, and he reminded me of how the story went. And because I just remembered that part of it. And he said, no, this is the way it happened. He said, the village was really small. There were like maybe 4 buildings. It was a farming village. There were like maybe 4 or 5 buildings. One of them was kind of a pub. And it was such a small village, no tourists would ever stop there. There wasn't a gas station in town. There wasn't anything. There was no reason for anyone to ever stop. And it was really out of the way, okay? Small, you have to get small roads, with the giant hedges on both sides. And you're thinking, oh my God, if a car come towards me right now, I'm really in trouble, because it's just a 1-lane road. And that's kind of the traveling that we had to do. And when we got there, the owner who had bought the pub, he was an older man, but he'd owned the pub for 30 or 40 years. And what he said, in my lifetime, I have never had an American tourist come in here.
Wow.
And we were like, and of course he was like, oh, I say, this is so fantastic. So, he was like signing, and stuff. And in fact, in fact, it was one of the last pubs in the day that we went to, and it got to be near midnight, and we had no place to stay. And because we hadn't made arrangements. And so we asked him, we said, there's like 4 buildings in this town. There's like, so what do we do? And he said, well, just down the road, he said, I'll give them a call. And he says, we have this kind of like this, it's kind of like, they call it the castle, but it's really more like a bread and breakfast kind of a thing, and looks a little bit like a small suburban castle, that kind of thing. And they, but they were closed, and the guy actually asked him to open up for us, and they didn't have any rooms, so we ended up sleeping in the attic. On metal cots.
Oh my God.
They were like World War II issued cots. But I'm not making this up. They were the friendliest people, and they actually signed the book. And they are not in the book.
Right.
But my brother reminded me that they signed the back, and it's
in
called
the back.
The Rose and Crown, and they signed the back of the book. They weren't even open. They just basically opened their place. They let us have the attic, and so these are the kind of adventures that you end up having when you basically drink all day and don't take care of your making sure that you
there's a lesson there. Planning is overrated. Planning is overrated.
Yeah. So, but there was another pub. It's in the book. It's the highest pub in England, It's out in the middle of nowhere. We're heading for it. And the entire time we're looking at the gas gauge, and the gas gauge is going further and further to empty. And we were and there was nothing. I mean,
right.
We drove for at least half an hour and there wasn't a gas station to be seen, right? And nothing but kind of flat areas, like the northern parts of England where it's really desolate kind of. It's very pretty, but it's also very open. Okay, it's a little bit like driving through New Mexico. And so we were very nervous, and I kept saying, don't worry, we're really close, I think, to this pub. And
I hope
they got to have gas, right? They got to have gas. I mean, how do you? I mean, there's no gas anywhere near here, so you got to have gas. They got to have gas. So we finally see it way distance, and we get there. It said no gas.
Of course.
So we went in. We talked to the owner. The guy again. Everybody was so friendly. You showed them the book, and they immediately went, "Oh my God, this is so fantastic! Yeah, of course I'm going to sign this. The drinks are on me, no problem."
Wow.
And we're sitting there, kind of going, "Okay, do you have gas?"
Like, when do we ask?
He said, "Yeah, we do." He said, "But I'm not going to give you any. I'm not going to sell you any because because I only get my delivery once a week, and I run the entire place off of a generator.
Wow.
So I'm not about to give you my generator gas." So we're going, crap, what do we do now? So, and he pointed out to us, he said, well, he said, this is the highest pub in England.
Oh,
it's all downhill from here.
Literally.
And I swear to God, we coasted. We would just turn on the engine just enough to get over whatever little hump we had to. And then we would coast for 5, 6, 7 miles. We just kept coasting. And we finally ended up getting to the gas station.
That's hilarious.
This pub, by the way, because I just put in the highest pub in England, and there is a pub today that calls itself the highest pub in England, and it is the Tan Hill Pub, which is in North Yorkshire, and it looks like it's not that far, Michael, really, from the Lake District.
Let's see. It may. I wonder if it's the same one. What's it called? Because I'll look it up.
Tan Hill Pub.
I'll look it up because it's in alphabetical order here in the back of the book.
Because they pride themselves on being the highest pub in
the Tan Hill Pub. Page 61. Hang on.
That's cool.
Page 61.
In fact, Crystal, they don't even call it the Tan Hill Pub here. They call it the world famous Tan Hill Inn. The highest pub in England is 1,732 feet above sea level in the Yorkshire Dales.
Hang on.
That's cool.
Hang on. Is this it? Yeah, here it is. Yeah. Ha! Here it is. I'll show you a picture of it. You can see.
It is wide open. There are no trees.
See that? There is nothing, right? And notice the signature.
Yep.
There we were.
Signature on the book.
June.
And we just coasted down there from there. And that was, yes, we were there. So,
wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so there were just all kinds of, the pubs themselves were almost always very quaint. The food wasn't the best.
Okay.
You'd have bangers. Bangers are the,
of course.
Yeah. Okay. And and as I said, we would start drinking. Or that was one of the difficult parts of this thing. We had to force ourselves. It was very hard. My brother and I had to force ourselves to drink ale starting at about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. It was torture. It was really torture. And then we would drink generally till, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And sometimes we didn't know where we were going to stay. So, yes.
I've got two questions about that. First one was these people super excited to see you, Michael? Ever anybody so excited to see you that you get free stuff? Did you get a free pint? Did you get a free lunch?
Almost all the time. No, we never got free food, but we almost always drank the first pint free.
Always got a pint.
It was so long ago, I don't remember exactly everyone, but I can honestly say that I remember that it was not as expensive as we thought it would be because we got a lot of free booze.
And then number two is, you're off the beaten path. And Crystal, how many times have you and I talked about this? You get off the beaten path and everybody is so nice. Even, we've talked about in Paris where a lot of Americans talk about how rude Parisians are. But when I've been off the tourist path in Paris, people were amazing, were incredible. In Cairo, in the touristy areas, people were horrible. When I got away from touristy areas, they were wonderful in Cairo. But I'm wondering if there was anybody who was rude. Did you have anybody that was just...
No, we never did. I think there are two things that, because we ended up talking to them a lot, right? They ended up not just signing the book, they ended up sitting with us, especially in the really small pubs, like that one place where they got the place to open for us. I mean, there were like 3 guys in the pub, and we sat together. And they'd ask us about the U.S., et cetera. So, again, this is '87. So there were a couple of things that almost every one of the pub owners liked, and that was that we brought them a book to sign, which means that it was kind of a cool thing, right?
You're honoring them, really. You're honoring their pub, and you're paying homage to what they do.
Know they were in the book. The ones that did know they were in the book thought it was really great that we went out of our way to actually drive all the way to their pub, and so it's kind of cool. It's no different than if someone asks me to sign one of my books. I love it. I sit in a restaurant, I sit in a coffee shop, and somebody comes up to me and says, "Are you Michael Balter? I just bought your book. Can you sign it for me?" And it makes my entire day, right? I mean, you just sit there and go, "Oh my God, this is so cool," right?
Yeah.
So it's no different if you own a pub and somebody asks you to sign, a book that your pub is in. So that was one of the things that they really liked. The other thing is again, back in '87, I'm not sure how many Americans at that point in time were taking this off. I mean, obviously it's a huge tourist mecca, and it always has been, but not on these trips. So, like, for example, you just saw the pub, the highest pub. You saw how desolate it was.
Right.
There was nothing for miles around it. Okay. What are the chances that a lot of American tourists, end up there? Right. And so I think that's the other reason why they really were friendly with us. The other thing that you may not, I don't know if you've ever traveled by car north. One of the things that my brother and I discovered that kind of caught us a little bit by surprise is that England is architecturally completely different in different parts as you head north. So once you get, for example, the buildings if you go north past Oxford and into the kind of Shakespearean counties, all the houses, or not all the houses, I'm sorry, a lot of the pubs and a lot of the buildings have thatch roofs, and they have, that kind of white with the dark planks of wood. I don't know what that's called in architectural terms. And then as you get further north, that all starts to disappear, and then it just becomes rock, or stone. And then and the further you get, you start taking on kind of more of a Scottish bend to it as you're getting closer to Scotland. So the architecture of England is significantly different and very unique as you travel through the country. So that's one of the things I'd never realized before. It just wasn't something I paid that much attention to until I started seeing it.
But it makes sense that the timber would slowly go away and it would be more rock, because timber is, you don't have it. You just, you don't have it. But all so beautiful. And it just has to be amazing. And I love the beginning of this. You're sitting in a hotel room and you're like, what the hell are we doing? We're doing the same stuff everybody else is doing.
We were, exactly. And so it was, even to this day. So one of the things that this happened only about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, my brother and I, my brother came to visit me. He lives in North Carolina, and I'm in Charlevoix, and he came, and my son was here, and we were just talking, and my brother said, we were both getting older, and I said, is there anything still that you want to do? If you have any kind of a bucket list item? And not making this up, and my son is sitting right there, and he said, yeah. He said, I do. He said, I want to finish the book.
Oh.
And I actually said, what are you talking about? Finish the book? You mean, because I write books. He says, are you going to write a book? And he says, no, the book, the pub book. And I went, oh my God, the pub book. And he says, I want to finish it. And my son immediately said, you're not going without me.
Well, hey, do you want to?
My son is in his 30s, so he goes, "You're not going without me,
Perfect.
Dad. There's no way." So we were going to do this last year, but then I got caught up in my third book, and also my brother had some illness and he had a brain issue, and unfortunately, we couldn't go. But he's getting better, and
Oh,
so
good.
things are cool. Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
means
Well, your long
gotta
lost
get it done.
sister, Crystal, can go.
Yes, absolutely. You are absolutely invited to come
Yes,
along. Absolutely.
definitely.
I know this does Crystal check all the boxes. Somebody else planned it. I get to ride
Exactly.
along.
Boom.
Sounds like fun.
I
The
have a
pub
job.
crawl.
Yeah, I can pay.
Right.
Yeah. She doesn't worry about the all expense paid part, but you planning it, Michael, is exactly what she's
Yes.
looking for, or the book planning it. Well, before we say goodbye, we have to talk about your books because you and I met after when you were doing the Chasing Money press tour, which was, of course, a big hit and not only a bestseller, but won a ton of awards.
Yeah,
and then you talked to Crystal and I for the Vatican deal. And so interesting diving into Italian history and another award-winning book. You got number 3 coming. Is there anything you can spill about what's happening with book number 3?
I can tell you that it's at the publishers. It's finished. It's gone through its beta readers, and I've made the adjustments that from the input that I received from the beta readers, and it's at the publisher. It's going through something called developmental edit, which is they look at it and make sure that it's a book that they were willing to publish. I have any issues with that. I don't have any problems with that. I think that it'll pass muster. And and it'll come out. It's scheduled to come out in early July, and it's called Dead Exit. And I'm looking forward to having it out. I've already started writing plotting out my 4th book. This one's going to be a little bit different. I've been writing the Marty and Bo thriller series for the first 3 books. Those are the first 3. And I want to take a break from that. So now I'm going to write a completely different book that has it's kind of a both modern day, and it alternates between modern day and back in the 1970s, and it's going to go back and forth. So it'll be kind of a half Vietnamese war story and half modern time.
Wow. Fantastic. Cool. I can't wait. And if people want to follow along, by the way, if they want to follow you and follow kind of what you're up to at any time, how do people do that?
I have a website. It's mbalter.com. Also, my books are on Amazon. There's the Vatican deal.
Yeah, widely available.
And it won the SIPA, by the way, for Best Crime Thriller for 2025.
Congrats.
So it's really cool. So
pretty big deal.
Yeah. So, my books are everywhere, hopefully. And I mean, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc. Just type in my name and you'll see them. So, and my website.
Thanks for sharing the pub crawl stories today, Michael, for coming back and doing that. That was so damn fun.
Yeah, that
Good.
was.
It was even more fun doing it. Yeah, because you guys didn't offer me any beer. I mean,
sorry.
How do you? I mean, my God, I'm sitting here talking about beer for the last hour. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, oh, he's got to offer me a beer sooner or later, but apparently not.
We were recording this at 8 a.m. Central Time, but I forgot you started early.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. That is Michael Balter. And let's talk again, Crystal, about 2 quick things before we say goodbye to our adventurers today. People stacking adventures. Number 1, our gear, all gear that has been tested. By the way, we also have Michael's books that are in our Gear of the Day store. Page. But great to take on a plane for an airplane ride, but for your next adventure. But if people want the gear of the day, if they want time-tested stuff that are either we've used or that our guests have used, where do we find it?
Yep. Head to stackingadventures.com/GOTD or Gear of the Day if you want to type it out. You'll help yourself and you'll help us.
Amen. And if you've got your own pub crawl story or any story, there's a way for you to tell those.
Yep, head to stackingadventures.com/mystory. I know, because now Michael's convinced me to do, like, I have this little recipe book of the favorite restaurants in Alexandria. So I'm going to go to these places and
You
try
should
their
totally do that.
stuff.
Just
Yeah,
take it
that'll
with
be
you.
fun. Yeah, I am.
Get all the chef signatures.
Yeah,
That's fabulous.
Definitely. That's the plan.
And then third, you can also use that same link, stackingventures.com/mystory, to play our new game.
Yes.
And win the Emerald Cruise Lines backpack.
Ooh.
Or just have fun trying to figure out where Crystal is. Because we know one thing, Crystal's not in the mountains.
Ain't
So
in the mountains. Ain't in Montana.
all right, she's Crystal.
All right, and I'm Joe. He's Joe.
And he's Michael today. We'll see you next time. Keep on
Yeah.
adventuring, everybody.
Thanks for
Thank you.
listening.
Thanks for having me.